Hi everyone, my name is LMahs. Today I'll be walking you through a sociological analysis of the Black Mirror episode, The Waldo Moment. On the surface, this episode looks like it's just about a crude cartoon character. But as we'll see, it raises much deeper questions about politics, technology, and the way we as a society give power to the tools we create. Now, Black Mirror itself is worth pausing on. It's an anthology series, meaning each episode is its own self-contained story. But every one of them reflects something about us, about our relationship with technology. The title Black Mirror refers to our screens, our phones, TVs, computers, those dark reflective surfaces we stare into every day. Charlie Brooker, the creator, has said the show is like holding up a dark, distorted mirror to modern life. That's exactly what the Waldo moment does. It looks silly at first, but underneath it's warning us about how technology can transform not just entertainment, but politics and society itself. My focus today will be on the theory of technological determinism, the idea that technology doesn't just reflect society, but can actually drive and control social outcomes. This brings us to what I call the paradox of the digital politician. To kick things off, I want you to think about a thought experiment. What if a candidate's greatest strength was that they didn't exist at all? In the Waldo moment, that's exactly what we're dealing with. Waldo is a cartoon, a character with no real history, no real policy, no real human presence, and yet he becomes one of the most influential voices in the political race. Why does that resonate? Because it taps into a real-world frustration with traditional politics. People often feel like politicians are fake, overly polished, or disconnected from real life. Waldo, ironically, feels more authentic precisely because he isn't real. He doesn't have to follow the rules, and that freedom makes him appealing. This is where the paradox comes in. A figure with no substance, no policies, no body, no identity gains influence simply because he embodies entertainment and disruption. And that's the starting point for understanding this episode through the lens of technological determinism. Before we dive into scenes, let's define technological determinism. Most of us tend to think of technology as neutral. A hammer is just a hammer. You can use it to build or to destroy. But this theory argues that's too simple. It says technology itself is not neutral. It has affordances, like things it makes easier or harder to do. And once it's introduced, it reshapes society in its own image. In short, technological determinism is the theory that technology itself is the driving force of social change, and that society adapts to technology, not the other way around. We can look at history, for example. The printing press transformed literacy, religion, and politics. Radio didn't just entertain, it reshaped how leaders connected with the public. Franklin Roosevelt's fireside chats, for instance, built a sense of trust and intimacy with millions of listeners, while other governments used radio as a powerful propaganda tool. And Twitter didn't just give us another social media site, it redefined how presidents, activists, and everyday people communicate. This is what sociologist Thomas Hughes called technological momentum. The idea that once technology gets rolling, it creates pressures we can't easily stop. That's why Black Mirror is such a perfect playground for this theory. Every episode asks us, once a new technology exists, what new social outcomes does it force us to confront? Now let's turn back to Waldo. He begins as satire, a comic sketch meant to poke fun at politicians. But the technology that animates him, live motion capture combined with television broadcast, gives him a unique power. He can interrupt, insult, joke, and reach audiences instantly. Here's the key. Audiences find him refreshing. They laugh, they cheer, But in politics, laughter isn't neutral. Laughter can delegitimize opponents, weaken authority, and turn politics into a spectacle. Waldo thrives in that spectacle, and the technology forces everyone else to play along. Remember the bathroom scene with Liam Monroe? Monroe is furious because he realizes he can't engage with Waldo using traditional political tools. He can't debate him on policy. He can't counterattack with logic. Waldo's advantage comes from being untouchable. Literally, he's a cartoon. This is technological determinism in action. Waldo doesn't succeed because of careful strategy or ideology. He succeeds because the technology changes the rules of the game. It creates a new playing field where traditional politicians can't compete. As Waldo's popularity grows, something important happens. The humans stop driving the process. The technology itself takes over. The executives behind the show realize Waldo is getting attention, and they respond not with careful strategy, but by doubling down on what works. In their words, he's just an idea that works. And an idea that works is more powerful than a real person. Now let that sink in for a moment. That statement is chilling because it's not about politics anymore. It's about technology and momentum. Once something gets attention online, it becomes hard to stop, even if it wasn't planned or intended. We see real-world parallels here. Think about how Donald Trump used Twitter, bypassing traditional media and forcing others to respond on his terms. Or think about Volodymyr Zelensky, a comedian and actor who became president of Ukraine. His rise shaped not only by his talent, but also by the media platforms amplifying him. These aren't one-to-one with Waldo, but they show how entertainment, personality, and technology combine to shift politics. And then comes the final turn. Jamie, Waldo's creator, is pushed out. The technology no longer needs him. Waldo spreads globally, projected on giant screens, evolving beyond his origin. That last scene with Jamie, homeless under Waldo's looming image, is a metaphor for what happens when technology outlives its creators and becomes an independent force. This story isn't just about Black Mirror. It's a warning about us. Think about today's politics. Viral memes influence elections. Deep fakes threaten to blur the truth in fiction. AI-generated content can flood the internet faster than fact checkers can keep up. And notice, just like in the episode, these technologies aren't controlled by one person or one political party. They have their own momentum. If a meme goes viral, it spreads regardless of who benefits. If an algorithm rewards outrage will dominate. And this is the genius of Black Mirror. The show isn't meant to be a literal prediction of the future, it's metaphorical. Each episode is a kind of modern fable, exaggerating the role of technology so we can see our own world more clearly. The Black Mirror itself is our devices, reflecting us back at ourselves. In fact, you can see this across the series. In Nosedive, social status is shaped entirely by social media ratings. In 15 Million Merits, entertainment and labor blur into a system where technology dictates human worth. And in the Waldo moment, political discourse bends to the logic of a cartoon bear. So Waldo isn't just a crude animated character, he's a metaphor for the way technology reshapes politics and power. And that makes him less of a fictional warning and more of a mirror showing us exactly where we are right now. So what do we take away from this? The Waldo moment is ultimately a reflection on our relationship with the technologies we create. Once something gains momentum, once it catches on, we may lose the ability to fully control it. And that leaves us with a powerful question. When a political meme or digital persona starts shaping public opinion, who's really in control? Is it the humans behind the screen, or is it the logic of the technology itself? We might want to believe we're still in charge, that technology is just a tool, But the episode suggests otherwise, and maybe that's the scariest part of all. We don't always notice when the balance shifts. By the time we realize the tool has become the master, it may already be too late. So I'll end with this. Are we already living in our own Waldo moment?